Hey, it's
Nice.
Nick.
Alright, we're now on air. Welcome everyone to uh, episode 1. It's technically our second episode, but it's episode 1 of the series because we started 0. Today we're going to be talking about consulting and WordPress stuff like that. WordPress consulting and roadblocks and some of the differences maybe between developers and designers as far as consulting goes. But first, let's do the introduction. So, starting with Steve, why don't we just go through quick introductions?
I'm Steve, and I'm a freelance WordPress developer in Missouri.
Cool. Shelly?
I'm Shelly Peacock. I'm in Tennessee. I'm a freelance WordPress designer and consultant.
All right, cool. Nick?
I'm Nick Adams. I'm a web designer and developer. I own Revolt Media.
Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I am not on screen, but that's all right. That's Nick. I'm a freelance developer in Montreal. Consultant, developer, not designer, definitely. And that's still Nick, by the way.
Oh, I see
And
you.
Kate, last one.
Hi, I'm Kate. I am in Birmingham, Alabama. I am a consultant for WordPress. I weave website magic.
Awesome. I'm Roy. I moderating / host of this podcast for today, and I am a WordPress developer, former consultant, and I currently work at Disney. It's a lot of fun doing WordPress stuff. So before we get into it, typically we do WordPress news and stuff. So it's been a little more quiet, I think, this past week because it's been pretty. What's the hashtag? WP drama up till past couple weeks. Lots of legal stuff and fun WordPress shenanigans going on back and forth between some of the big players, if not the player of WordPress. But I don't know, it just seems to.
What about the short codes? Short code drama.
That was big drama.
There was short code drama with the new release. You're right.
Yeah, that was fun.
Which was fun to be a part of because there was a huge thread on the Advanced WordPress group on Facebook, which started on my post, which I really wasn't planning on it being a conversational topic discussion. I was hoping to just be one of the masses and troll a little bit on the group, but somehow a short code conversation started anyway.
It was a good discussion, definitely.
Yeah, no. I think I honestly didn't know what was I didn't really know what that was coming out until they started talking about it. So it was a good conversation. If anyone's watching and doesn't know what we're talking about, check out the new release of 4.3, right? 4.2.3? And
4.2.3.
yeah, 4.2.3, and there were some security updates that I think messed up some shortcodes, which caused also some plugins to stop working well. So check it out if you haven't already. As far as WordCamps go, the next big one that I can think of is Vancouver, which is in the middle of August, followed by WordCamp Russia. Russia is also the 15th of August. And there's some other ones going on next month. So cool stuff. Anyone else have any other news from the WordPress community?
I love writing custom loops myself. That way I don't depend on views or types or anything like that.
It did seem to be mostly premium plugins that were having problems with the shortcodes. views was the biggest one that seemed to be having issues because it's on so many different websites.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people that said that WooCommerce had some issues, but none of the sites that I manage had issues with WooCommerce.
No.
I haven't seen any problems across the board on my sites, and at work we haven't updated any of our sites to 4.2.3 yet. We tend to stay a few versions back until we can test and justify upgrading, because it's the whole process. But all my personal sites, which get automatically upgraded anyway, I haven't seen any issues with them or the shortcodes. So hopefully it's just a random thing, or I think there's been some fixes for it already, or some patches. So hopefully nothing else comes up. That'd be bad.
I think it's definitely what it started, it seems like, is a good conversation, though, about the need for better communication between the core committers and third-party devs. Because it seemed like a lot of it was that people were just taken by surprise, and by the admission of the people who committed that one to core, they did admit that there was absolutely no warning, nobody knew, it was done last second, and I think it's definitely worth having that discussion about, how can we get better communication so that the developers that make WordPress, the community and the extensibility what it is, so that they don't feel left out in the cold.
The issue with the update, too, was not only the fact that it happened last minute and people didn't know about it, but that so many sites are set to auto-update. So it broke as soon as the auto-update was pushed, and people weren't aware that this was a possibility. That created a lot of WP drama.
Yeah, well, I know that it also brought up the fact that there's a short cycle for when stuff gets pushed. So I know a lot of them were talking a lot about the QA and test cycle for these things. And even if they're, planned a year out, it seems like a lot of it gets shoved in, especially with security-related things, last minute, and then it goes untested in a wide audience, which, then if one thing breaks, it causes everyone's thing to break. And so I think, I don't know if they're going to relook at the testing or QA process, but it's a good conversation to have. Maybe they do need to revisit and think about it again and change it up, because if things like that keep on getting passed, then it's not a good thing, especially when you have so many people using WordPress with auto updates on.
I've seen a lot of consultants saying that's why they're turning off auto updates on all their client sites, which can have some repercussions. And it may be something we need to talk about on another episode, because it can have can create some problems further down the road for WordPress if people get if end clients get the impression that WordPress is going to just push its updates regardless of whether or not it breaks your site.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people who turns it off. I did for some people, if there's a site that, it's just the stakes are too high, but I definitely pretty much switched over to that model where for anybody whose site I manage now, automatic updates are off, especially after 4.2.3. And what I use is main WP, so that way I can push out updates after I've gone through each site and just made sure that everything else is up to date. Because like the biggest problem was like people who had WooCommerce that was out of date, which anything older than 17 days, which really is not that long between the WooCommerce fix and the other fix. Michelle, I love the picture.
Well, also, I mean, it didn't really help that you, not you, I mean, it just didn't really help. That the same day, a lot of problems also arised from Chrome when you updated to 44. It totally, there were so many problems with SSL, with logging in, with like CSS not popping up because it was forcing HTTPS. It was a bad day. I mean, it did not go super smoothly, that update.
No, it did not.
You can tell Dawson is very upset about it.
I mean, it's sad. It's bad, you know.
So what do you think things could, I mean, if you were in the control, what would you do differently? I mean, what would you implement, I should say, to possibly change a lot of this stuff so it wouldn't happen again?
So for me personally, what I would do is I would send out an email to anybody who has a plugin on WordPress.org. They already have the email addresses. I mean, you have to have an account to push up your files there anyway. So I would at least send out an email, get a little bit of communication. As for the people who sell on third party, the Code Canyon people, not sure what to do about that. And people who sell on their own, but at least if people are putting out free stuff, like a lot of the ones that broke are available on WP, well, WordPress.org, not WP.org. That's its own topic of conversation someday. But yeah, I mean, it seems like most of the ones that I knew of that broke at least major sites, all were WordPress.org plugins.
Well, except for views.
Jane coming?
So I think that as consultants, what we need to do then, okay, if WooCommerce older versions were the ones that broke, then that sort of puts the onus back on us to make sure that our clients stay updated and to keep track of reasons for updates. Like Nick, I have auto updates turned off on my clients that have critical installations, and most of those are people who are using e-commerce in one form or another. If somebody's shop goes down for an hour, that's how much money they've lost. It could be thousands. So those I keep auto updates off until I can test it and make sure that the updates are going to work properly for everyone. So as consultants, it's just puts a little more responsibility on us to make sure that everybody stays up to date.
Cool. So we talked about that a little bit, but I wanted to get into our main topic, and this is kind of where my expertise isn't what it used to be because I don't consult anymore, but we're talking about WordPress consulting. And so the conversation started as looking at the Los Angeles area, that's where I live, looking at a lot of the kind of well-respected big-name designers in this area, and a lot of them I've noticed were taking on full-time jobs, and even though I thought they were at a level that they were, consulting comfortably, I don't know, I don't want to say that they made it, but they were living, I thought they were making good income because they were very, very knowledgeable people, and on definitely for me on another level than your starting out designer. So that conversation going, and we started talking about some of the people who have kind of made it as consultants, and it seems to be a lot of them, their background is development. So they start out as developers, they start consulting, and then they they kind of grow out their consulting business. And so I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. I'd like to talk about some of the pain points, so I think we should just start there. All of you guys are consultants, so what are the biggest pain points you guys have as far as your consulting and like your consulting business goes? Is it always the same thing? Do you think it's different if you're primarily a designer? Kind of curious. So I'm gonna leave this up to you guys to kind of answer that question. Vishal, why don't you start?
Personally, actually, I wish I could consult more. I tend to, unfortunately, be stuck with smaller gigs where basically there's no money for design, there's no money for consulting. It's like do it quick, do it cheap. Luckily, I've been doing this for a while. We've seen different things, and consulting, I find, is that it's hard to sell all those smaller customers on the value of consulting, of planning in advance, of figuring things out before they happen. Thank you for that gesture, Roy. Yeah, that's my biggest pain point, is not being able to as much as I'd like to. If doing agency work went in different fields, then it's totally like, what's the best solution? How are we going to do this? Most of the time, I'm able to like choose the plugin, and that's about it. So that's from my point of view as a smaller freelancer.
What are some of the pain points that you have? Like, what are roadblocks that you end up facing? Are they pretty common? And are you guys? Do you have like a way to get around them? Do you just kind of suck it up every time?
I'm going to go for next. Nick, how about you?
Right. Sorry, I was messing around with my audio. Can you repeat the question?
What kind of roadblocks do you face in consulting, and like, do you have a standardized like method to get around those roadblocks, and or you don't? You have to just kind of take each one differently. Are there any patterns that you see with roadblocks with clients?
Oh, yeah. So some of the issues are definitely client specific, and then there are plenty that are pretty universal. Some of them just being like we were talking about, the updates. I mean, pretty much with almost every client, that keeping the site up to date, keeping it secure type of thing is one of those seemingly universal things. Most clients are not interested in doing it themselves, and not to discount their capabilities and the things that they do, but most of them are not WordPress professionals, and so they are not really capable of evaluating everything in the same way that we are, who stare at WordPress for 12 hours a day. And so that's the biggest challenge, is just trying to keep up with everything and trying to manage the clients. So really, scalability, I think, would probably be, if I had to put it into a challenge, because unless we build like an agency, which is the way that some people are going, then we end up with we can only do so many things at once.
So you're saying your biggest roadblock is kind of an internal roadblock, not even like roadblocks with the client, but you're facing roadblocks with your own internal, whatever, lack of whatever. Your roadblocks are more of an internal thing.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely the case. I mean, there's always going to be those individual roadblocks, like you may come across. You have the client who wants everything done as soon as they tell you about it, even though you are working on something else. You have the client who thinks that they have suddenly become a PHP professional and suddenly thinks that they can write code or edit code. So you get those individual ones which are definitely more of the external. So there's always something new when you're working direct with clients, for sure.
Well, that's definitely a big one too. I think when you're speaking of, when you mention like that they become experts all of a sudden, there's the whole aspect of don't tell me how you would like me to do it, tell me what you need done. And that's the consulting part, is that we'll find the best solution. But chances are you might not have found the right one, whereas we've been staring at them and reading up on them, and we spend so much time in groups on the web figuring these out. So that is actually a pain point I find, is customers who don't, it's not that they don't trust you, it's just that they don't know how to let go. I'm not talking about levels of clients from hell, horrible customers, just oftentimes it's like we all have our specialty. Let us tell me what you need. We'll figure out how to do it.
I don't know. I've had mixed interactions with that, because I totally agree that people that have their own solution and aren't willing to budge on that are not the ideal place to start for a client, relationship. But I've also noticed that sometimes when they come to you and they've done a little bit of research and they're like, look, I want a simple e-com site, so we're going to use WordPress and WooCommerce, right? And this kind of goes both ways, but I find sometimes, and this is maybe more of the rare case, but when you find it, it's awesome. They've done their research enough that they know, that they can't do it. So they're willing to give you a little bit higher of a budget. While some people are like, hey, I need a website, and they automatically don't, because they know nothing at all. They absolutely nothing. They're like, oh, how much is it going to cost me? $500, something like that, $1,000 at most for a website, because they know absolutely nothing about it. So it's I think good in some ways. Obviously, if your client is just a legitimate business owner, has a business that's running and that's profitable, and they can see business solutions and what basically their value add is to their company.
Absolutely. That's fine, and chances are they already have experience with Woo as well. So it would be a good solution for them if they know it, or if they researched it. And I mean, e-commerce is a very big decision, and if they're already going towards one and you know it, that's fine. But it's all the little stuff, like which I want to use a sharing plugin, or I want to use this gallery plugin, or chances are that's not what you need, My nephew told me that Next-Gen Gallery is awesome, as is Revolution Slider. When actually Foo was the one you want to go to, but yeah, that's something else.
Next-Gen and Revolution, he's just asking to get hacked.
Bought on ThemeForest, of course.
But that's why I only install the version of Revolution Slider from 2.5 years ago, because that's the better way to do it. If you're going to get hacked, get in style.
I think you can still get the old Thumb if you want. You can get that library in there too.
Oh, wonderful. I do need that.
Good.
Actually, it is still available on oldversion.com, but I don't recommend it.
How about you, Shelley? What kind of roadblocks do you face with your consulting, and do you have ways around it, or is it kind of unique every single time?
Well, it's unique a lot, but my biggest problem right now is I consult to small to medium-sized businesses, and so I end up, and I take it from, they say, I want xyz.com, and I take it from there and take them through, the whole entire process, start to finish. So guiding them through buying the domain all the way to teaching them how to use it at the end. The biggest problem that I'm running into right now is, and just specifically with one case I have going right now, end user issues, client issues, that people just don't know how to use a computer. If y'all know what I'm talking about, where they if there's on a form, if there's a required thing, they don't do anything with the required thing. They hit submit, it doesn't work, they come crying. So that's a pain point for me right now. you know, as far as updates and stuff goes, we handle that almost on a daily basis, so I don't really have a problem with that. But my biggest problem right now is I need to, I'm like Nick, I need to add people because I've got too much work. So it's a good problem to have.
I mean,
But
it's a good problem to have.
well,
Yeah.
yes, no, because if you know, if your capacity's gone, then you eventually choke on that too.
So you're kind of hitting a pain point or a roadblock where you don't have literally the capacity, the bandwidth to take on, let's say, a new client because you're kind of stuck with your existing clients or finishing out projects. Which I always thought was an interesting place to be in. Like I've always wanted to get to that point when I was consulting where it was like, I mean, I think I definitely got there, but I just didn't have it wasn't financially viable for me to be there. Like I was there for no good reason. I was taking on a whole bunch of really cheap work. So it was like by the time I got to overcapacity, I was like, I'm not even making any money on any of this. And I don't know. I always thought that was kind of the point of interest because a long time ago I really wanted to start my whole consulting and becoming a little agency kind of thing, and I thought that was going to be the cool thing to do. But it's hard to scale up, right? Because
Yes.
if you hire someone or you consult or send out, a subcontract role, you don't know what their abilities are compared to your abilities, and I find that is the kind of the hardest part because what you quote out as 40 hours worth of work might take one of your subcontractors 80 hours worth of work.
Right.
So that's not really a scalable sliding solution. And you'll have, let's say, 5 subcontractors, each with different, work ethics and
Well, and different plans. You know, a lot of I brought on a couple of people last year, two different people, and they wanted to do it their way with their plugins and their premium subscriptions and that was serious pain point because if I'm going to be maintaining the site moving forward, I want what I'm familiar with, what I know how to work with. So that was tough. And that's, finding that right fit is the hard thing.
Steve, how about you? I know that you've brought up pain points in the past. I'm curious what kind of pain points you have with your consulting.
I think that I'm having troubles being the bearer of bad news lately. So I get into a project and I estimate an amount. I'm trying to do flat rate fees anymore. I wanted to get away from hourly, which has worked out really well, except when I don't estimate well. So I go double in with my time on what I've charged the client, and then I have to go back and say, okay, this is way more complex, and that's just really kind of maybe inexperience on my part. Like I'm just kind of fleshing that out, working out how better estimate to begin with, maybe, but anyway, it's just the realities of what we work with. You find out that, like I was talking about next gen yesterday. I found out how much you could customize the old legacy version of next gen, and then when they came out with the new version, it's been a few years, I think, but when they did that, they kind of rewrote it, and I had no idea how much someone had gotten in and actually customized that. And so I'm like, okay, guys, this is way more than I thought it would be. So, and I feel bad, but I mean, I guess I need to not have feelings in the consulting business. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy, and scope creep is definitely something that I think a lot of these things that we've talked about, we could probably spend whole episodes on. We're kind of running out of time right now, but there's definitely a whole episode to scope creep, a whole episode to scalability and how to handle your workload. And do you take on the subcontract or you just say no? I think those are 2 options you have to weigh out, right? And knowing when to say no, stuff like that. I commend anyone who can be a WordPress consultant. I think that it's something that I tried doing and I failed, and I'm not unhappy that I failed at it because I don't know if I don't know if I could continue doing it, But I definitely commend anyone that can, obviously support themselves off consulting. I think it's pretty amazing, especially in the WordPress realm, and especially now because it's getting a little flooded, I would say, depending what price point you're at. And I'm sure that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, so I'm not sure if we have any last remarks. I wanted to touch on the kind of like consultants, designers, and versus V developers kind of thing, but ran out of time, so maybe next time. Any closing remarks from any of you guys? Final thoughts? No? All right. Well, thanks for joining. I will talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, Roy. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.